Vision shifted. Smoke rolled across the city, but it was not from enemies. There were no invaders, no Siyinians, no war drums. The people of Akkad stood still, watching the horizon. A sky darkened by dust, not arrows. Famine. The rivers had turned to mud. The winds had changed, and the king stood alone above the plaza. His eyes were not angry, only tired. He turned toward the temple and lit the first flame, not out of despair, but duty. Fire spread, controlled, ritual. Every tablet, every symbol, fed to the blaze, not to destroy, to preserve. If the body dies, the spirit must burn bright enough to cross time. The people walked into the flames, not screaming, singing, and the last thing the travelers saw was the king stepping into the fire, a scroll in his hands. He gasped. The chamber returned. The throne stood before him, untouched, but his skin was warm. His fingers glowed faintly, red gold lines beneath the surface like cracks of light. The tablet he carried was no longer black. It burned gently, not in heat, but in memory. Across its surface, new script had appeared. Fresh, precise, a message not from the past, but from the fire. He read it aloud, though the words were not his. If you carry this light, do not seek to rule. Seek to remember. Let no city rise in forgetting, nor fall in silence. His voice echoed strangely in the chamber, as if others were listening, or still repeating it. The flames along the walls dimmed. A final pulse, then stillness, but not emptiness. The throne remained empty. The fire did not die. It simply waited. Evening fell like silk. The sky turned the color of ash and wine, and the first stars blinked above the city of Uar. The river whispered. Its banks shimmered with the memory of old floods. At the edge of the city stood a great ziggurat, wide, tiered, and pale under the rising moon. It was not empty. Within its highest chamber, a girl sat alone, hands resting on an old lyre, strings silent. She did not play. She only listened. Below, the priests chanted, low voices, deep and slow, like waves speaking in sleep. The temple walls were smooth and white, polished by centuries of prayer. But something had changed. Tonight, the moon rose brighter, and the air hummed, as if waiting for a song no one remembered how to sing. The humming grew louder, not from the priests, not from her lyre. It came from below. The girl stood. She moved without thought, as if the temple itself guided her feet. Down spiral steps, past closed doors, through halls lined with faded murals of gods and rivers. Then she stopped. A wall, plain, unmarked, except a single stone near the base shimmered, just slightly, in the moonlight. She touched it. A soft click. The wall opened inward. Behind it, darkness, cool and deep. She stepped inside. The chamber was small, circular, silent, but the hum was here, close, clear. On a pedestal of black stone rested a slab of ivory clay, carved into its face. A song. The notes were written in symbols she did not know. Yet somehow, she remembered them. She carried the slab back through the hidden door, up the spiraled stairs, into the temple's open court. The sky was vast now, dark velvet, dotted with stars. She placed the clay beside her lyre. Her fingers moved slowly, unsure, yet certain. One note, then another, soft, uncertain, then steady. The sound drifted through the columns, through stone, sky, and silence. Then the world changed, not loudly, but deeply. The bricks shimmered. The air thickened, not with heat, but memory. She saw it. A world before cities, before kings, just rivers, waters without end, mountains submerged, trees drifting like ghosts, and voices, hundreds, singing beneath the waves. The flood had not come to destroy. It had come to cleanse, to prepare, and from it, Uar had risen. A city born not of war or fire, but of song. The melody slowed. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, from knowing. She played the final note. It echoed longer than it should have, as if time itself paused to listen. The vision deepened. She saw people, not drowning, but walking through the water, eyes open, arms raised. They sang as they moved, not in panic, in purpose. Above them, stone tablets floated, inscribed with stories, laws, names. Some reached the shore, some did not. The flood, she understood, was not a punishment. It was a memory test, to see what the world would carry forward, what it would lose. The song had chosen her, not because she was special, but because she could hear, and those who could hear could remember. A voice stirred within her. The water recedes. The silence remains. Will you speak our names? She stood slowly, cradling the ivory slab like a child, its surface still warm with music. The temple halls seemed brighter now, not with fire, with presence. She descended into the central court, where the priests knelt in their evening chants. They did not see her, at first. Then her footsteps paused. The slab rested in her arms, and from her lips, the melody began again. No lyre, just voice, soft, clear, each note ringing like a drop of water into stillness. The priest stopped, turned, and for the first time in generations, the torches of the temple flickered without touch. The walls hummed. The altar stone split, not with violence, but release. From within it a scroll, wrapped in silver thread. The high priest stepped forward, touched the scroll, and whispered, "It has begun again." The high priest unwrapped the scroll. Silver thread unwound like starlight between his fingers. The parchment inside was pale and smooth, untouched by age. Its symbols glowed softly, a script older than even Sumerian. He did not speak. He only held it toward the girl. She stepped forward. As her eyes passed over the writing, the meaning unfolded like breath. This temple was not built to honor the gods. It was built to remember the world before. Lines followed, not prophecy, instruction. When the waters rise again, do not run. Sing. Let the memory ride the tide. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sorrow, from knowing. The temple was not just a place of worship. It was a vessel, a lighthouse made of stone and sound, built not to resist the flood, but to speak through it. The desert shimmered beneath the noon sun, but far below the heat and wind, beneath stone and sealed passageways, the air was still. A tomb lay waiting, carved into the cliffs of Thebes, long forgotten, never opened. Until now, a group of workers stood before its entrance. Their faces were wrapped in cloth. Their hands shook, not from labor, but from reverence. They were not grave robbers, not tourists. They were descendants. And this tomb was not marked with a pharaoh's name. No gold cartouche, no towering statue. Only one symbol above the door. A face, featureless. A mask of smooth obsidian. No eyes, no mouth. Yet somehow watching. The workers lit a torch. Its flame flickered as the first stone was pulled free. Air rushed out, dry, cool, ancient. They stepped inside. The walls were smooth, undecorated. No golden murals, no sacred texts, just the mask, carved again and again into every surface. Always the same, blank, obsidian. They moved deeper. At the center lay a sarcophagus, not gilded, but black basalt. No name, no offering, just a circle of footprints carved into the floor around it. 12. Identical. The lead worker stepped forward, hands trembling, torchlight quivering. He touched the lid. It slid without resistance. Inside, no body, only a mask, the same obsidian face. But this time, it cracked down the center. And from within that crack came a breath. The breath deepened. Not wind, not air, memory. The workers froze. The mask rose slowly from the sarcophagus, not lifted by hands, but by presence. It hovered in silence, then turned toward the man holding the torch. No eyes, no mouth, yet he felt it watching. Then, inside his mind, a voice. Do you know your name? Or only the one given to you? He staggered back. The mask floated closer. We were the nameless, the watchers, the ones who prepared the tombs, but were never placed in them. Visions flashed. Men building pyramids, women painting spells on linen, children carrying baskets of salt. None wore crowns. None were remembered. We wore the mask, so you could wear the memory. The mask lowered. The crack glowed faintly, like fire behind obsidian. It was not threatening. It was offering. One of the workers noticed it first. A breeze, faint and cool, rising from a crack behind the sarcophagus. They cleared the rubble. Stone by stone, a narrow passage opened. They stepped inside. The chamber was low and wide. No gold. No statues. Just darkness. At the center stood a flat wall of black granite. And across it, nothing. Until the torchlight flickered. The flames danced, and the shadows moved. Not randomly. Deliberately. Symbols formed. Not carved. Cast. One of the workers gasped. The shadows spelled shapes they didn't recognize. Not letters, but gestures. A hand reaching. A mouth closed. A figure bowed. The mask behind them pulsed. And the voice returned. Our stories were never written. They were performed. Lost. When the watchers were buried without names. The wall shimmered. And in that moment, they understood. This room was not for the dead. It was a stage. The chamber pulsed with warmth. Not heat. Presence. The mask hovered at the center, its glow casting shapes across the walls. The workers stood still, unsure. Then, one stepped forward. The youngest. A woman. She mimicked the first shadow on the wall. A raised hand, palm open. The light responded. The wall shifted. The shadows danced again, a new gesture. She followed, step by step, shape by shape. Not a performance, a remembrance. The voice echoed once more. When names fade, the body remembers. She turned. The others joined her. Together they moved. Awkward at first, then steady, as if the rhythm was carved into their bones. The mask dimmed, its purpose complete, not because they had uncovered something, but because they had become it. And in the silence that followed, the tomb no longer felt like a grave. It felt alive. Night had fallen across Anatolia, but the hills did not sleep. Stone pillars rose from the ground like ribs, weathered and tall, silent observers of stars that never blinked. At the center of the ring sat a woman, eyes open, back straight, still. She did not move. She did not close her eyes. She hadn't slept in years. They called her the Oracle who never slept. And she had no name of her own, only a title, a purpose. Each night she sat in the same place, beneath the same moon, an olive-colored crescent that never seemed to change. She did not eat much. She did not speak. She simply listened. To wind, to roots, to stone. For prophecy, she claimed, did not come from gods. It came from beneath your feet. He arrived at dawn, dusty sandals, a leather pouch at his side, eyes weary, not from travel, but from doubt. The villagers called him the one who forgot. He could not remember his parents' faces, his home, even his own true name. They told him the oracle could help. So he climbed. The hill grew steeper, the wind sharper, but she remained, unmoving beneath the olive moon. When he reached her, he knelt. She did not acknowledge him, not with a nod, not with a word, but the earth around her seemed to still. Even the birds fell silent. He whispered, "Who am I?" She blinked, once, then held out her hand. He hesitated, then placed the pouch into her palm. She opened it. Inside, a stone, flat, round, faint carvings on its face. She touched it to her forehead, and the wind changed direction. She held the stone to her brow for a long time. Then, she spoke. One word, soft, precise, Gardash. His breath caught. The word meant brother, but not in his language, not from any tongue he knew. Still, it felt right, like a name whispered through generations. She placed the stone on the ground, tapped it gently. It glowed. Images bloomed in the dust. A child running through wheat fields, laughter echoing over stone terraces, a lullaby in a forgotten tongue, a river with no name, a woman's hands threading beads onto a cord. Tears filled his eyes. He knew these things, not as stories, but as pieces of himself. He turned to the oracle. "How did you know?" She answered, "The earth forgets nothing, but it only speaks to those who stop asking and start listening." The visions faded. The stone dimmed. The earth stilled. He looked down at his hands, as if seeing them for the first time. They were calloused, familiar, unknown. The oracle remained still. eyes open, unblinking. She did not speak again, but the silence pressed against him. Not heavy, just full. Full of choices. Full of paths. He knew now. He could descend the hill, carry his memories back to the village, speak his name again, or stay, not to speak, not to teach, but to listen, to the shifting of roots, the cracking of stone in the morning sun, the low hum of time. He stood between two winds, then slowly sat beside her, not as a seeker, but as a listener, and for the first time in years, she closed her eyes. The wind swept low over the Kanya plain. Grains of dust danced like spirits across the earth, and buried beneath it all was a city, Catalhoyuk, 9,000 years old. It had no streets, no palaces, no doors. Homes were entered through rooftops. People walked above their lives, climbed down to sleep. The city wasn't built to impress. It was built to contain. Under one such rooftop, sealed for millennia, a team of archaeologists had gathered. They lowered themselves through a narrow square in the ceiling. Inside, the air was cool, still, thick with memory. The walls were smooth clay, painted with animals, bulls, leopards, vultures. But what drew them closer was a shape in the plaster, a handprint, pressed deeply, deliberate, smaller than a child's. One of the archaeologists knelt beside the hearth. A faint crack split the plaster near the edge. She brushed gently. Clay flaked away. Beneath it, bone. Smooth. Curved. A human skull. They had expected that. Catalhoyuk was layered in burials. The dead laid beneath the floors of the living. But this one was different. Wrapped tightly in woven reed. A child, no older than 2. And in the curve of the arm, a bead, carved from volcanic glass. Jet black. Still warm to the touch. The lead archaeologist, a quiet man with weathered hands, picked it up. A flash, not of light, of memory. He staggered back. He had seen something. A woman crouching beside a fire, pressing her palm into wet clay, singing, softly, as if to soothe the walls themselves. And behind her, no doors, only silence. The bead pulsed faintly in his palm, not with heat, with rhythm, like a heartbeat, like footsteps. His eyes glazed, the room blurred, and suddenly, he was not himself. He stood barefoot in the clay home. The fire cracked softly. A woman, the one from before, crouched near the wall, painting animals with fingers dipped in ash. She turned, met his gaze, spoke without words. We do not build walls to keep others out. We build them to keep memory in. He turned. No door, only a narrow shaft above the roof. A single way in, a single way out. The child's body lay beneath the floor, not buried in grief, but in ritual. They weren't hiding the dead. They were living with them. The city was not a maze. It was a memory, walled, layered, protected, and no one ever left. Because to leave was to forget. He blinked. The vision faded. He was back in the chamber, dust in the air, tools clinking faintly outside. The child's skull lay undisturbed. In his palm, the bead no longer pulsed, but it felt heavier now. The others watched him, waiting, ready to dig deeper. He looked at the walls, the paintings, the hearth, the handprint. It all felt awake. He thought of the woman's silent gaze, the message wrapped in her stillness. Keep memory in. Not everything was meant to be uncovered. Not every secret was hiding. Some were resting. He placed the bead back into the earth, pressed the clay shut, gently, carefully, and said nothing. Outside, the wind moved across the rooftops. Not loud, not cold, just enough to close the door. The jungle had grown over everything. Roots coiled through stone. Vines choked staircases. Bird song echoed where prayers once whispered. But under it all, untouched by time or rain, was a chamber, sealed, smooth, still. Its walls were made of black basalt, its ceiling low, its floor dustless. In the center, a basin, perfectly round, lined in obsidian. No water, no offerings, just reflection, or almost. For when the torch was raised, the mirror gave back everything, except the face that looked into it. You could see the room, the flame, even your hands, but not your eyes. Never your eyes. He leaned closer. The torchlight flickered across the obsidian basin. The surface shimmered. Still no face. Only shadow. Only sky. He blinked, and the mirror changed. It rippled, then cleared, revealing not him, but a city, stone towers, wide courts, crowds gathered around altars of smoke and gold. But the sky above was missing. Not cloudy, gone, blank, as if the heavens had been carved out. He watched as people bowed before a circle of priests. Each wore the same cloak, the same hood, and each carried no shadow. He saw walls built higher and higher, not to keep enemies out, but to hide the stars, to bury the sky. Then the priests placed their hands on the mirror, and the reflection shattered. He stumbled back. The torch dimmed. The mirror was whole again. Still, blank, waiting. His breath steadied. The torch rose. Near the base of the basin, he saw them. Lines etched so fine, they vanished in dim light. He knelt, traced them with his thumb. Symbols, not decorative, precise. A language he didn't recognize, yet somehow understood. The sky told too much, so he covered it. Another line beneath it. This mirror does not reflect. It remembers. He felt a weight settle in his chest. This wasn't meant for self-seeing. It was a vessel, a prison, holding visions that once drove a city to silence. Behind him, the air grew cooler. Not wind, withdrawal. The chamber was pulling back, or pulling in. The flame of his torch bent toward the mirror, drawn by gravity of memory. He whispered, "What did you see?" The mirror did not.